say goodbye. When they said you're going to sleep, pray the Lord your soul to keep. Don't cry, brother, can't you see? You will live on in 100. In 100 years. You're more than a friend to me, like family, now in between. No one can ever see the pain you hold underneath. And now I just can't believe the world seems so incomplete. Even the strongest bleed and can't breathe when angels weep. Just breathe. When they said you were going to sleep, pray the Lord your soul to keep. Don't cry, brother, can't.
What's up, family?
Try to run, you can't go back to escape the pain that's in your back. There's nowhere to hide the scars of that. You cannot change.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Survivor Series. The Survivor Series is an original product of nomoreheroin.org. And today is Thursday, February the 21st. I want to give a shout out to Dwayne Louder, RadicalOnlineRadio.com. It's been an amazing support. Please check out his new broadcasting platform at RadicalRadio.com. Chris Freeman from SoberWorks.com. Also, amazing support, amazing platform. I'll bring my guest on here in a second. I want to thank everybody that, let me get this here. Thank everybody for the love and support. No More Heroin just crossed over 20,000 followers. It's been an amazing journey so far. We've had this platform for about 18 months now. The Survivor Series has been around for about 16 months. And my guest tonight is Mark Gibson. He is a certified addiction professional. I believe the acronym is CAP. In the state of Florida, he is a certified drug and alcohol counselor. He hails from New Jersey, and he lives down here in South Florida and has worked in the treatment space for 15 years. Is that correct?
15 years. Yes, that is. It's a long time.
Thank you, my friend, for being here. You have been an amazing support for me. You've been part of my network, my sponsorship family. You've been a great friend to me and a wealth of knowledge when it comes to 12-step recovery, the fellowship, knowledge of the book, and how to deal with life, on life's terms. Please introduce yourself to our audience. And once again, I'm grateful. I'm grateful to have you. You're very knowledgeable, and you have a great testimony.
Hey, thanks for having me here. I really appreciate the opportunity to come on your show. I've watched it. I've watched what you guys have done with No More Heroin and all the affiliates partnerships that you've built. I think you're doing great work, and you're a great advocate for recovering people, and I think that's really a testimony in and of itself. So I'm honored and humbled that you would consider having me on this and show and talk about things that were important to me and to the industry and to recovery in general. Yes, I hail from New Jersey. That's true. I hope you don't hold that against me. I am also a veteran. I was in the Air Force. I was in the Air Force for 12 and a half years, born and raised in New Jersey. I was also adopted. I mean, there's so many things that go into this. I'm also in recovery. I've worked in the business of recovery. I have two daughters, and I am in a long-term relationship. Hi, Kimmy. How are you? You know, I've been doing this deal for a long time, and it hasn't been a smooth ride. And I think what we wanted to talk about fear and faith and how that comes into play in early recovery, which I can identify with very strongly, and just life in general. Because I mean, when you say that, I immediately go to something that someone presented me a long time ago, and yeah, I didn't invent this. And they said I'm either scared of not getting something I want, or scared of not keeping something I think I possess. And that really stuck with me really strongly when I was told that, because I mean, you know, and I was told I had a lot of delusional thinking, and I didn't know what that meant at one time. And the way I understand it now is very simply that I believe in untruth. And when you think of it, I think it's double negative, you know, but I've lived a very fear-based life. And I mean, fear it talks about it in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. It talks about it in Narcotics Anonymous literature. And it talks about that and action steps that we can take to remove it. And faith is a big part of that for me. And, you know, all I'll say is that I remember my first bit of fear, you know, in addition to the dark and just being, you know, I remember my father and mother getting married. It was a blended family deal. And I remember I was the ring bearer. And I remember I had to walk down, I was 5 years old, and I had to walk down the aisle with this ring bearing thing, you know. And I remember somebody telling me, and I don't remember what it was, but somebody said, think of something that you really don't like. And it was, at that time, it was eggs. I didn't like eggs. I was like 5 years old. And I remember walking down the aisle and I was just terrified. And that feeling has come up quite a bit in my life. And I'm 50 years old now. And I know that on the outside, I could appear very comfortable, but I'm not. I'm not comfortable. In the inside, I'm a mess. And it's usually financial insecurity. It comes out there, you know, it comes out in my relationships. It talks about in literature, fear being the corroding thread. That's right. And so that's where fear, what do you think about, I mean, can you identify with that?
I can identify with that. For me, I've experienced a lot of trauma in my life, starting at an early age, and fear was instilled in me at a very young age. And I began using substances not only to fit in, but to also deal with that overpowering sense of dread and just being scared all the time that I didn't fit in. I wasn't normal. I didn't look right. I had all these insecurities that fed into that big wad of anxiety that festered inside me.
Well, and you know what's really strange about that, you know, fear. So you said something very telling, and it talks about this in a lot of recovery literature about acceptance. And it talks about this, the most popular thing in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I just happen to know that literature better than I know Narcotics Anonymous literature. And I'm always open to people teaching me. So, I mean, if somebody can give me or comment in the feed, the corresponding list, I appreciate it. But it talks about acceptance is the answer to all my problems today. When some person, place, or thing is unacceptable to me, you know, and so I used to think acceptance meant that I had to like it, and you know, which means that there's a pleasurable feeling associated with that. And the reality of it is acceptance doesn't mean I have to like it. And there is a connection between acceptance and fear, for me anyway. There's a strong connection for that. You know, whatever that is. I have
for me, when we come to terms and accept something as it is, we relinquish the power it has, over us, and the urge to control and manipulate a person, place, or thing. Is that right?
Yeah, and there, that hence the faith part of it. Faith is, and I just want to quote, and this comes from the big book, and it says we live by what we believe, not by what we can see, and that's 2 Corinthians 5:7. So when I think about that, in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, it talks about fear, talks about promises when it comes to that, and so fear for me, and faith for me, so. When I came into the rooms, when I came into recovery, and we talked about
Hi, Aaron.
Talked about faith, I believed what you said. For some reason, and it talks about that in terms of identification. In 12-step literature, it talks about one alcoholic to another, one addict to another. It talks about that, like, that's without parallel. That relationship is without parallel, and it's so true. Because it means I believe, Higgy, that what you're spitting, the truth you're spitting, truth being your journey, your truth journey, I believe it and I can identify with it. And when I first came in, I thought that meant my journey had to be yours. I had to use like you did. I had to have the same consequences you did.
Absolutely.
As I've traveled through these steps and as I traveled through my journey, what I've came to believe in a power greater than ourselves, for instance, was that I did not have to have the same journey. I did not have to have the same consequences. But what I did need to have was an identification with the feelings. And if you're anything like me, I consider myself articulate, but I can't explain a damn thing about how I feel. Does that make sense? Like, I think I can write a paper, I can type, I can post a nice quote. But if you want me to tell you how I feel, I'm like, I don't know.
It's truly hard to put a finger on an emotion and describe how we feel unless we're in tune with ourselves.
Well, and that's why when you have a group, when you do, like, as a clinician and you do a group, when you were in group, and I've been on both sides of that. I've facilitated groups, and then I've been the guy in the chair, right? And so you remember the feeling sheet? It's like, here, have a feeling sheet. Tell me how you feel. Maybe this will help you, because we were told from a very early age, we did not know how to explain how we felt. You know what I mean? And you know what? There was a lot of truth in that. And I remember saying, to clients, and I can identify with it, was, they'd be like, I feel shitty.
Yes.
Shit. Well, that's not a feeling.
That's
feel
a broad
good.
term.
I feel good. I feel bad. You know what I mean? And it's like, and all of a sudden my vocabulary was expanded. I feel perplexed. You know what I mean? I feel ambivalent. I start using words and I'm like, shit, I got to look that up. Wait, hold on. What's that mean? It's like, that's a feeling that I don't like, feeling uncomfortable. You know what I mean? It's like, how many people are we talking to right now? There are people, that I don't know that are out there. There's people that I know that are out there. I think as I've gotten older, one of the biggest teachers for me was my grandmother. She just passed on September 11th. My biggest support, my biggest role model, my biggest love in my life, unconditional love. And she taught me a lot about getting older and just expressing what you need to. Like, she just became comfortable with saying what was on her mind. And now, mind you, she was old school Italian. But what I'm saying is like, I'm 50 now, and I'm more comfortable saying things I was not comfortable with at 30, at 25. And people are coming into recovery today earlier and earlier. I'm amazed by the recovery that I see these young men and women come into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, all these anonymous, Cocaine Anonymous, Drug Addicts Anonymous. And I'm seeing them have multiple years of quality recovery.
That's such a great thing to see, though.
It's amazing to me. And I'm just like, I didn't even know what I was. I'm still learning what I am. You know, I'm still learning, and the day I stop learning, I probably won't be on this earth, and I'll probably that'll be a new level of lesson for me. But I will say that, you know, I walked into the rooms very fearful. And you know what? If I don't maintain my spiritual condition, I can stay fearful. And it's funny what I mean, as I've gotten older, it's who's going to be with me. I don't want to die alone. What I don't want, I mean, when I did my fears list, when I went through the the steps, you know, when we look at the fears list, you know, I don't know if this was a popular one. I don't want to die alone. And I remember, you know, I have had many spiritual advisors, many mentors, you know, and I'm grateful for all of them because they've all taught me something. It's amazing the lessons that you learn. One of the spiritual truths for me is people come into your life for a reason, a season, a lifetime. My ego assigns that category, of course, and what happens is God kind of laughs, or my character defects come out, and something that was made for a lifetime becomes a reason or a season. It gets recategorized. But I remember, you know, going through those fears, and fear of being alone was a big one. And the person who presented it to me, they said, "Don't you come into this world alone?" Now, we can look at this, you know, one of two ways. Like, I mean, and this has to do with faith, because like, if I believe, and I believe in the word God, I mean, God is a word. If I say there's a picture on the wall, I mean, you wrap your mind around the word picture, right? You figure you have a mental Santa Claus. You have a guy with a beard, right? Nobody thinks like Santa Claus when I say that word. They don't think it's Joe Elliott from Def Leppard. They think of an old guy with a beard, you know. And so when I say the word God, everybody has an idea there too. So when I say that, for people who are at different points in their recovery or their belief systems, it's just a way to standardize this conversation. But
real quick, Sam Caceres is in the comments. He said hi to you.
Hi, Sam.
And Aaron Almeida.
Oh, Aaron, I'll see Aaron next week too. Awesome.
Yeah,
my boys from
both treatment professionals, well known, well respected in the community. That just gives credibility to who you are and the respect that you do have in the community. You've earned your respect based upon your professionalism and your knowledge. So I appreciate you being here. And for those that are just joining, we have Mark Gibson. He's an addiction professional. He's a counselor. He's a drug and alcohol counselor. You know, he's certified in New Jersey and Florida. And where I kind of wanted to go with this conversation, people that want to experience recovery, that don't know how to go about doing it. They're so feared up. They have mixed emotions. They're coming out of this numb state of mind and can't process their feelings correctly. What kind of suggestions, pointers would you give someone that really wanted to give this recovery thing a shot?
How I would talk to somebody, you know, and in the back, it's one of my favorite quotes. It talks about, and again, you know, I mean, it talks about this in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. It talks about this in the appendix in the back, and it the spiritual experience. It says there's a principle which is a bar against all information, which is proof against all arguments, and which it cannot fail to keep a man in everlasting ignorance. It says that principle is contempt prior to investigation. And what I would do is I would talk about that principle, how it applies to my life, and how you know, and recovery was a huge thing, because the disease of addiction is the only disease that tells you don't have it. It don't. It says I don't have this. It's not that bad. It's a brain disease. Addiction is a brain disease. It's chronic, fatal, and progressive. And if you don't believe that, you know, you talk to some real drug addicts and real alcoholics, and I think you'll see that that's the truth. People who have put together multiple years of recovery and have relapsed. I mean, I have experience there. People who have put together years of recovery have not picked up a substance, but they're not living clean. You know, they got 20 years and they're cheating on their wife and they're stealing money and they're living in their character defects. I believe that everybody is recovering from something. When we look at the opiate epidemic, that's, you know, totally devastating our nation right now, and you look at more people perishing as a result of opiate addiction than the Vietnam War. When you think about that statistic, this isn't eye-popping for anybody or for the people that attend your show. Hey, I don't think everybody is very well aware of that. When you look at that, you know, nobody's talking about eating disorders. Nobody's talking about compulsive gambling. You know, everybody's recovering from something: trauma, ACOA, childhood, adult of alcoholics. I mean, all these different. Everybody has their story. Everybody has their journey, and we as a society, I don't think, are as patient and tolerant with it as we need to be. But we're all recovering from something. And when you talk to somebody and you pull up to somebody at a red light on your way to work, or if you don't have a car or a job, or on your bike, or you're at the bus stop, you know, we don't like everybody's going through something, you know, and I don't know, that's what recovery has given me, is the ability to think outside myself and to and I'm not the greatest at it, but I've gotten better at it. You know, we'll say that. But contempt prior to investigation. My first meeting was 1996 in Narcotics Anonymous in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And I didn't wake up that day and decide I wanted to go. I woke up with a gun to my face. Albuquerque police, they wanted to meet me very desperately, and that was the way they wanted to do it. And then, you know, my dad had come out to Albuquerque, and I wasn't ready to see him. And he was like, "You're going to narcotic, you know, you're going to an NA meeting." And I remember going, and I remember saying, "Okay, I can't do this substance, I can't drink, or I can't smoke crack, but I can drink." And I mean, and going to that meeting, and absolutely, I did not identify. And so, like, that fear of going into the rooms. So is recovery for everybody? I don't know, man. I used to think that everybody had to go through the steps in like 10 days. Everybody had to go to a certain fellowship. I used to think that everybody had to do things a certain way. And at 50 years old, and after watching things professionally for a number of years and living things personally for a number of years, I don't have the corner market on how somebody should recover. But I'll tell you that whatever it is you're doing, you got to do something different. And you know what? That's where that faith comes in. And if somebody's listening to me tonight, somebody's listening to you tonight, Higgy, and you know what? I believe that the God of my understanding uses people to motivate and influence people, because there's someone that you can reach that I can't touch with MC Hammer. I'm dating myself.
Nice.
You know what I mean? I mean, but there's some people, you know, that's what I tell people that I get the privilege and honor to work with. There's people that I was like, you know what, we have nothing in common. I had a good friend talk to me this week, and know what he said? He goes, "Mark, go find somebody that's completely different from you, completely the opposite of you, and go and see how you can help them." And he goes, "And watch the gift you get."
Blessings. The promises of our recovery program. Are you there? He froze on us, guys.
Of hope and recovery. I'm back in the show. Am I back in? I'm back
you
in.
You are. We had a glitch in our internet.
A glitch.
Yeah.
I like that word. So where'd you lose me?
About 2 minutes ago.
All right. Basically, I guess where I'm at is everybody's in recovery from something, and a contempt prior to investigation.
That's right.
It's funny though. So I'm going to use a very powerful analogy that was really. Can I? Let me just finish this statement real quick. Do you go to your drug dealer and were you scared to do heroin or crack cocaine or whatever your drug of choice was the first time you did it? All right. Basically, I guess where I'm at is everybody's in recovery from something, and a contempt prior. Can you hear me?
Are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can.
All right. So when we used our first drug or drink of no choice, and I don't say of choice because who would choose to reach the level of desperation and tragedy and hurt that we've caused our families? So I like to say drug of no choice. I like to get in the habit of saying that because we continue to do that. That's no choice, right? That's where powerlessness comes into. But when we start doing that, when we start going to neighborhoods that we would not normally go, we don't ask that, like we don't say, can you test that first? Because I don't believe it's really, you take a leap of faith, right? You go out and you use something that you don't know what it's, you automatically believe that it's going to bring you a certain high, right? So, but we're not quick to do that with higher power stuff, but we're quick to do that with drugs, which are our higher power, right?
Absolutely.
So when you look at that, do you understand? Somebody had to point that out to me, and that was pointed out to me in the 12-step rooms. That's where that was pointed out to me, because I can tell you that nobody in Publix or Pathmark or ShopRite or A&P or Piggly Wiggly or whatever supermarket chain is where these listeners are from, nobody was telling me that. Nobody was connecting the dots like that. So for me, a 12-step program worked. For me, I was like, I believe what you're saying. I believe it. And how did you get to who you are? Because I believe who you used to be. That was faith. That was faith. What got me in the rooms was fear. Yeah. Fear. But what I learned, one of the first lessons I learned in the rooms was that fear will not keep me sober or clean or whatever word, abstinent, clean, sober. Fear would not do that. Fear would not work long term. What it will do is get you that jump. Fear of financial insecurity, fear of being kicked out by your girlfriend, your wife, fear of not being able to eat, fear of low quality of life, whatever that is. But you know what has been time tested, mother approved, is fear will not give you the happiness and the peace and serenity that working the steps may do.
That's right.
You know, let's talk. And I don't know much about this, and I would love to know what the listeners think about this. Smart recovery. I don't know much. I mean, I know as a clinician, but I mean, like, I'd love to hear from people who are engaged in smart recovery, and I'd like to know what they think about fear, what they think about faith, because it's a different, it's like a CBT type of
cognitive behavioral therapy. It's challenging thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, it's goals and
self-help.
Yeah, I mean, for me, that wasn't my path, but maybe for someone who's listening right now, who's like, 12 steps weren't for me. 12, the rooms weren't for me, but smart recovery was for me. And this is what's worked. Now, we can get into a debate because, the only thing that can make someone diagnose themselves if they're an alcoholic or an addict, I don't care what professionals or what letters are behind their name, because you know what, Hig? You have to believe you are. It doesn't matter what I tell you.
It's the only disease that has to be self-diagnosed.
Exactly. Self-diagnosed. Yep. But not self-treated.
That's right.
You know what I mean? You get a cut, you go, you take an antibiotic, you can't, you know what I mean? It cannot be self-treated. And you know what? That's it. It's so funny. You can't be self-treated, but yet selfishness is a component of the disease in it itself. Right?
That's right.
And fear, you know, I'm just watching the word fear come up on my screen. You know, I know some people have heard this. Fear, false evidence against reality. I mean, there's so many acronyms out there for different things. But, you know, I have to, for me in my journey, with my higher power journey, I was raised Catholic in an Italian family. I was an altar boy. I went to church every Sunday. I had no idea what I was praying to, no idea whatsoever. All I knew is that there were things that happened in my life that I wasn't happy about, and that I didn't know what I was going to do, and that the God of my understanding, why would the God of my understanding allow me to go through that?
Right.
I didn't understand that. So my fear, it talks about in the 12 and 12, you know, I had faith, but I didn't know what I believed. There's prayers that I was saying I did not know the meaning of. And the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous, Drug Addicts Anonymous, Cocaine Anonymous, they taught me to have a personal relationship with the God of my understanding, which has led me back to my origin of faith, you know, Christian, and all of a sudden I'm back in the big book, the big book. You know what I mean? But you could never ever approach me with that when I came in. You could never ever come to me and you put a Bible in front of me, I was running the other way, because the God I knew wouldn't do the things that I did. That wouldn't allow me to do the things that I did to others, and wouldn't allow the things to happen to me that happened to me.
Right.
Because I was a victim, of course. I didn't understand what my role was and things. And there were things that happened to me that weren't my fault. You know, there's things, you know what? Bad things happen to good people. You know, right. I mean, there's a lot of truth in that. It's a fact. Bad things happen to good people. But you know what? And this is where self-pity comes in. And recovery's given me the ability to say, okay, what am I supposed to learn from that? Instead of what was me. In fact, today's reading, and just for today, in the Narcotics Anonymous program, was all about self-pity, actually. You know, and how it's a corroding thread and how it affects our recovery. You know, and then there's things that I've heard in the rooms. The grateful addict, alcoholic doesn't get high, doesn't get drunk. That has no meaning for me, because the opposite of gratitude is entitlement, is selfishness. I didn't understand that any of this was a part of the disease of addiction. I thought my problem was crack cocaine and alcohol and marijuana, and whatever else I was using. I did not understand that wasn't my problem. I didn't understand.
That was our solution, right?
That was well, it was a solution that stopped working, is what it was.
Yes, for
sure. You know, that's why I say drug of no choice, because people are like, oh, my drug of choice. You know, who would choose where those things have taken you? You know, which is the level of powerlessness. And so it's like, well, I'm powerless. Well, I'm powerless. People today in the rooms, in recovery, in a traditional 12-step setting, they use powerlessness. And I say that because I can say that for me too. Have used powerlessness as an excuse.
Absolutely.
For why they don't have to do something. Well, I'm powerless. Well, I'm powerless. You know, but so
we'll find an excuse for everything.
Clinically, if I was seeing someone clinically today, I'd say, well, what do you have? What do you have power over? You know, so we have a choice every day. And it talks about this in the big book. It says we have a choice every day to go on to the bitter end or accept spiritual help, right? And accepting spiritual help for me is dealing with fear and developing faith. Developing faith takes away fear. I mean, it's like a proven. It's like a proven formula.
It may not take it away, but it allows us to walk through it to get to the other side.
Very true. Yeah, it lets you get to the other side. I don't think fear. I don't think addicts and alcoholics have the corner market on fear. I don't. I think there's people who don't have the allergy of alcoholism or drug addiction that get scared. You know, one of my biggest fears, well, dying alone was one. Another big fear for me was having surgery. I've never had surgery before. And I was scared that I wouldn't wake up. Another big fear for me was at one point going to prison.
Mm-hmm.
You know. I remember, because I've been to prison, and not county, but prison. And when I went to prison, it took him a year. It took me a year to go to prison. So, and I wasn't sure. So you want to talk about fear and faith? It took them a year to go to court, to go to trial, for my case to go to trial. And I didn't know if I was going to get 9 years or a year. So imagine walking around for a year, not knowing if you're going to go. You know you're going for at least a year. So in a year, right? You don't know if you're going away for 9. And so I'm walking around, and I wound up getting a year. But and I have never been institutionalized in a prison system. I've been institutionalized in rehabs, and it was very fearful. It was a very scary thing. And it's funny how you get all hard. You know, I use the word hard, like, oh, gangster and thug life, and then all of a sudden you know you're going to prison, and it's like, but I'm sick. I'm no criminal. I'm sick. You know, I'm an addict. I'm sick. Like, treat me. You know what I mean? All of a sudden you want treatment. You know, you didn't want treatment until you had the fear of prison. You know what I mean?
That easier, softer way, for sure.
Well, I'm gonna live this out in my experience. Go to prison, get out. Don't stay.
Now listen, everybody. Mark and I have both been to prison, and since Mark's gotten out of prison, he has gotten an education. He's got certification. He has a wealth of knowledge that he's gained from that point. Prison didn't ruin his life or end his worthiness in this world. He turned it around. You know, as for myself, you know, from the point I was in prison, I got involved with helping people. You know, as a case manager. As a mentor, as a facilitator, I started working in the medical field. I have my own business helping military veterans, and if people that have the darkest past can create the best futures.
Well, and it talks about that in a vision for you in the chapter Vision for You in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. It says how our deep dark past can be used to help others. And I remember people telling me that, and people saying to me, they were like, you know,
you can turn your life around.
This could be used to help somebody someday. And I was just like, I don't even want to help anybody. Like I don't, you know, I didn't like coming into this industry. Just to give you a little background, I didn't like wake up and say I want to be a drug and alcohol counselor. That's not what happened. Like I didn't wake up and like get all this epiphany and there was a white light and it was like Saul in the Bible. And it was like, this is God. That's not what happened. Like to me, I lost my job and my girlfriend at the time said, why don't you go be a tech at New Hope Foundation and go make $9 an hour, and that was my entry, and I started, and that's how I started, and it was a temporary job, you know. There was no faith in something. There was just like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to collect a paycheck and go home, and something happened, like I don't know what, other than, and I worked with adolescents in a gang, in gang affiliated adolescents in long-term treatment that went to school. And I don't know what happened, because here I am sitting here with you today, and it hasn't been a smooth ride. And I've taken some steps backwards in my career, and in my personal recovery. I've done both, you know. And but you know, one thing, I have not given up, and I haven't given up because I got plugged in with the we when I was healthy. I get plugged into people like you. And I had a sponsor tell me one time, one hand up, one hand down. And so there's people I have to look up to, and there's people I have to help up. And I've done that successfully at different periods in my life. I haven't done it successfully 365 days a year, but more often than not, I've done that. And as a result of that, I have a dog. That's Donovan, everybody. Say hi, Donovan.
Donovan, my boy.
You know Donovan, Hickster. You know. You want a pony? There it is.
The bone.
And I have Donovan, who's one of my biggest supporters. And I have a life that when I'm plugged in and practicing spiritual principles, it's funny for the disease of addiction, how we have a spiritual solution. And for some strange reason, Aetna, United Healthcare, Cigna, Medicare, Medicaid, God doesn't take any of that. Yeah, right. Donovan just said you're right. Like God doesn't take any of those policies. God, is free, and
that's Donovan, everyone.
That's Donovan. Donovan. He's a rescue. Donovan is a rescue.
That's our mascot.
That is our mascot. Donovan's named after the show.
For everyone that doesn't know, Mark and I are roommates as well. He's in the kitchen. I'm in my studio / bedroom / office. And
so Higgy can call Donovan right now and put Donovan on his camera.
Absolutely. But we were talking about people wanting to get into relationships early in recovery, and you said, well, I was told if I can take care of a pet, I'm golden. If I can take care of a house plant and not let it die,
got that right over there.
I'm golden. If I can do my laundry and not depend on anybody else, I'm golden. Well, any suggestion for anybody out there new in recovery trying to jump into a relationship? Is it a no-no? Is it a no-no? Is it written anywhere that you cannot be in a relationship?
Hey, I got something to say. So people say that across the board in treatment, right? What happens to the people who have kids and who are divorced or in long-term relationships and they relapse and they're in a relationship? And they don't use, they've been, in fact, if anything, they've been an enabler, right? The whole family needs treatment, right? Because it's a family disease. And the family's attitude is like, it's not my problem, it's your problem. And they don't understand nor want to, right? So You're in a romantic relationship with someone who doesn't understand addiction but doesn't suffer from the disease. And you go to a treatment center and the treatment center says to you, you can't be in a relationship. Like,
the quickest way to get an addict to do something is
I don't agree with that. I think that if you're in a relationship, I think that, you know what I mean? I think it's a very uninformed answer to say no relationships. I think there's more to the story there. And I think, and I was told 2 years before now I want to be clear, if you're not in one, it's different than if you're in one and you go to treatment, as opposed to not being in one.
Is it written anywhere?
Sleeping with somebody and being in a relationship. Let's be clear about that. So using and sleeping with somebody once in a while versus being in a committed relationship, your addiction takes the next level. You get sick and go to treatment, and counselor is telling you really can't be in a relationship for another year. And now your fear and your faith are both being threatened, because now you're being told you took a faith in going to treatment, and somebody's telling you, who doesn't really know the whole background story because they had like 15 minutes to get what we call biopsychosocial on you, and you're being told that you can't be in a relationship, and if you've known this person for 5 years, they're not an addict. In fact, you wouldn't even be at that treatment center if it wasn't for them, and you're being told not to be in their life. Am I off there? Tell me if I'm off.
No, you're not off. No,
I mean, there's more to the story. There's no cookie cutter answer here. But
that was what I was going to say right there. There is no cookie cutter style of treatment today. I mean, this addiction issue has gotten so complex. Now
I get to bring Donovan into treatment. Now you can bring your dog to some treatment centers.
Absolutely, and sober living.
Okay, bring Donovan.
Woo. He would love that.
He would love treatment.
He's our therapy dog.
Yes, he's a good therapy dog. But Donovan, no. See, hear him?
We're kind of having trouble with the reception. We're going in and out. Do you have any closing thoughts? I'd like to set the tone for future therapeutic Thursdays.
I'm excited. I'm excited to talk about a lot of different topics, controversial ones. I'm excited to talk about the treatment industry, my thoughts. I'm excited to talk about the lab industry. I'm excited to talk about the steps. I'm excited to talk about God. I'm excited to, like, some of the guests that I would like to bring on with you, you know, are near and dear to my heart.
You know some very, very knowledgeable people that work in the treatment space, and
I have very, very, very strong opinions about things. And I mean, I think part of the reason why we decided to do this was to talk about controversial things in a calm, professional.
That's right, Paul.
Passionate manner. You know,
That's
because
right.
the bottom line is anybody who's watching this show right now, like, think about this for a second. We're not in an alley somewhere. We're not smoking crack somewhere. We are talking about getting better.
Solution-based. Solutions. We're talking about solutions.
Solution-based. Like, to me, that's a miracle in and of itself. So when we talk about faith, we are practicing faith right now. The people that are listening to this show, that are coming in with their comments, and like, and think about it, man. Like, you're a walking miracle. We're all walking miracles that are living not in the bondage. You know, I will close with this. I say this to clients. I say this to people that I've worked with. It was said to me, do you want relief, or do you want freedom?
I want freedom.
There's a difference. There's a difference.
I want freedom, serenity, tranquility. I want peace of mind. I want to feel comfortable in my own skin from this day forward, every day.
But also, with that being said, Hig, you know what? I don't grow unless I get some bumps in the road. I don't. And that's where faith comes in. I don't wake up and say, you know what, Hig, can you pass me the breakfast? Can you pass me across the kitchen table a glass of faith? Thank you. I'll take some of that. No, I need to experience some pain to develop that faith. I mean, I wish I didn't, but that's my experience. That's just mine. I'd love to hear how people develop their faith without pain.
It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. Trials and tribulations, overcoming. You know,
about that, you know, in the Bible, actually, trials. It says you will encounter trials and tribulations. It pretty much says it's going to happen. It doesn't say it might happen.
Guaranteed.
Yep. It says that.
It makes us better. Challenges make us better.
I would love to have a topic of freedom versus relief. You know, relief versus freedom. And a lot of people, I didn't know the difference, to be honest with you. Freedom is more long lasting. Relief is temporary. So I could find periods of relief without doing a lot of the things that the 12 steps suggest I do. What I couldn't find without doing what all 12 steps say is freedom. And you know, if I stop doing what the action of the 12 steps are, I have not stayed free. My experience has proven it. Now, I was just talking to somebody recently. I don't name names. I've known two people in my life. I'll close with this. Two people in my life who decided, made conscious decisions to go back out, and they thought it out. Like, they were like, okay, just letting you know, I'm going back out. I'm going to be drinking again. And I'm like, wow, man. Like, it wasn't like an accident. It wasn't like I relapsed last night. It was like they were letting me know before they did it. At least that's what they told me, right? Mm-hmm. I've seen people go out, and this one person was out for about 8 years. I kept in contact with him, and then, you know, he's back in the rooms now. There's another one more recently who is out doing his thing, and he's like, I just want you to know, I don't care. Like, it's not my journey, man. My job you know, in the recovery community, both personally and professionally, is to be that non-judgmental hand when he's ready to come back, if he even needs to. And if not, I like him as a person anyway. So why would I say, oh, he's back out there, like I can't be around him? And that ties into the relief and the freedom, right? Because if I'm free, I can go and do anything, right? Given proper motive. The book talks about that. I can be friends with the people who go back out, because it says that's what we're supposed to do anyway. Yeah, freedom is ease and comfort with alcohol and drugs. It is. And it gives us freedom to go out and help that one hand up, one hand down. that I was talking about earlier, right? Because like, how do we find the people that are sick and suffering? A lot of them aren't in the rooms. So how do we project that message? Because I don't know about you, I find some of my best times to help people are not people in the rooms. As a Christian, I find some of the best people to share the message of Christianity, not in church, but in Walmart, dressed differently.
Yep.
And, you know, I mean, I find people, you know, and the 12-step, you know, I get to practice those steps. If you want to know how I'm doing, talk to the people that live with me, Higgy. Talk to Higgy about how I'm living when I'm not on this show. You know what I mean? Talk to my boss about how I'm living when he doesn't give me the pay raise I want. Let's talk about that. You know what I mean? Because I can sound really good for an hour, you know.
Right.
But anyway, I'm excited to talk about a lot of really cool things and get everybody's feedback and to learn from you guys out there in Facebook Live land. So it was really a pleasure and an honor being with you.
Thank you very much for being here. Thank you everyone for chiming in and whatnot. We'll be doing this, you know, on Thursdays to come. You know, if you bring your questions. Mark's got you know, knowledgeable answers. I'll be the one that facilitates. You know, I have opinions based upon my experience as well, but we'll kind of fill our way out as we move forward. I really think that our interactions are going to be very beneficial for the recovery community and our platform here at No More Heroin and the Survivor Series. So once again, everybody, I got a lot of love for you. Shout out to Logan Bruce. He allowed me to use the intro music for the show. If you get a chance, go to Logan Bruce Music on Facebook, like his page. He's got a music video and a new single that's dropped. He's my homeboy from Cleveland, Ohio. And for anybody that's going to be in Baltimore this Sunday for the Cloud Gang show, if you're in Baltimore, hit me up. Let me know. Come give me a hug. Come take a picture with me. We're going to be doing some live feeds. We're doing some interviews. Going through the crowd, just chopping it up, having a good time and fellowshipping. I love you all. Thank you for being here. We'll see you again. I'll see you on Sunday. All right. Bye.
Peace.
Peace.